Hello and welcome to Japanese in 5, where we take 5 minutes out of your important day and teach you an important concept. And today is actually a really important concept. And the idea was given to me by, I believe, someone in the chat room named PHP Eater. I believe that's what his name was. And the topic is objects versus subjects. And it's a very confusing subject initially, but what I'm getting ready to show you should be able to clear it up. But first you need to know how English works with subjects and objects. If you understand this, Japanese sort of helps a lot, okay? So let's look at a typical English sentence that is very simple, but that has an object and a subject and a verb, all right? So we have this sentence, Joe ate the fish. Joe ate the fish. Subject is first, then the verb, then the object. This in English we refer to as SVO. Subject, verb, object. That's the pattern of English. I'm not a big fan of that understanding, but you know what? It really works well for this. I don't like doing those sort of things. But if you understand that English is always SVO no matter what, it doesn't matter what comes here and what comes here. Whatever comes before the verb in English is the subject, and whatever comes after the verb in English is always, always, always the object, at least in this case. So for example, if I switch Joe with the fish, watch what happens. Right now, Joe, this big guy, he's eating a fish, right? But look what happens when we switch it and we put the fish where Joe was and put Joe where the fish was. Now, we've still got SVO because in English it's always about order. The fish ate Joe. It's completely only the order that determines what's the subject and the object in English. What about Japanese? Well, let's learn some Japanese words to make sure that you know them before we go into this sentence. We have sakana, which means fish. Good way to remember this is suck on a fish. Sakana. Sucking on a fish, yeah. All right, then we've got this guy, Joe. Now, I really wanted to do Joji, which is my name, but it gave me too many letters and it made the sentence too long. So we're going to go with Joe, okay? And the verb that he is doing is taberu, to eat. Taberu. All right, but we're saying he ate, so it's past tense, so we'll go with the informal version, tabeta. Okay, past tense informal. All right, now, before we make the sentence, remember the one thing that English does, order. Order is important in English. In Japanese, order doesn't really matter. Not really. What matters is the particle that you attach to the word. The first particle that you need attaches to the object. This is the particle O. When you type it, it's W-O to type it. And it's not really pronounced wo. It's actually more pronounced like an O. But it is the object marker. What does an object marker or object particle do? It marks the thing that is having something done to it. For example, you're eating it, you're buying it, you're drinking it, you're killing it, you're riding it, you're sending it, you're kicking it, you're kissing it, you're marrying it. All those things, please don't do that to your wife. Please don't kick her and kiss her and then marry her. Or the other way around even, okay? Now what does ga do? This is our next thing. It marks the subject. O marks the object, ga marks the subject. You see, because in English, we don't have particles. That's why we have order and stressing of a word. In Japanese, you must use these particles. So what does ga mark? It marks the thing that did something. When you're using a description of something, when you're saying it's cold or hot, or pretty, or cute, or expensive, or cheap, you use ga to say that thing is. Something ga something, okay? And the state of it, and that's the same thing. That's basically, if you're using an adjective, you're always going to use ga to mark the thing that you're talking about, or if you're talking about the state of something, for example, if I want to say George is dead, the state of George is he is dead, and I am going to be marked with ga. So let's look at that same sentence in Japanese. S-O-V. S-O-V. Look at the order here. We have Joe ga sakana o tabeta. Joe ga sakana o tabeta. If you don't have the particles, then you don't know what the object is and you don't know what the subject is. It's very important to the Japanese sentence. It's just as important as the English order is. But remember what I said, Japanese, the order doesn't really matter. So even though right now we have Joe ga sakana o tabeta, what if we switch things around? Sakana ga ジョを食べた. Well, I kept the particles in the same spot. So now what happens is it says that the fish ate Joe. But I can switch the particles and change what happens. Instead of SOV, it becomes OSV, and I can say, 魚をジョージが食べた. Now granted, that order is not very natural sounding at all. You typically are gonna do SOV in Japanese, but you can do OSV. Just like in any Japanese sentence, you can move things around as long as you keep the associated particle with it. And that is objects and subjects. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to learn more Japanese, well, you can go to bookdepository.com. And if you live in any country outside of the USA or somewhere where Amazon doesn't ship to, go to Book Depository and they will ship you the book completely for free. I'll see you all on the next Japanese in 5. Bye-bye.